Hi, welcome back to Deep Images. I am Henry Covert, and with me is my wonderful co-host of the evening, Elijah Butler, and we are here to continue our series on strange love stories. We have hit some really major ones here, and some have been very extreme, and then some have just been very quirky and eccentric, but they've all been very heartfelt in their own ways. Elijah wants to talk to you about one that falls definitely into the latter category, by a master of storytelling.
Yes. So I'm going to be covering Chungking Express from 1994. It's directed by Wong Kar-wai. And the film itself basically, it's two love stories combined into one about basically like two cops who started off like almost fresh out from like breakups. It's kind of hard to describe both stories in just the summary. Um, but that's basically what I'm gonna uncover throughout like this entire video because it is honestly a weird movie, but it's also engaging and romantic.
Hmm.
I think the main character's cop name is like 662, I think,
He's
if I'm correct.
223. The first one, the first cop,
223? Yeah, the first cop.
first cop is 223, and he's Ho Chi Mu.
Okay, yeah, you're
So
right.
that's played by,
Yeah.
believe it or not, because I didn't even realize that he was played by Takashi Kaneshiro, who's a Japanese actor who lived and worked in Hong Kong, and he's in several of Wong's movies. I guess the biggest role he had was in House of Flying Daggers, um, but I didn't realize it was him.
All right, but yeah, 223. He is a cop who recently got into a breakup with his um girlfriend May on April 1st, and he's been like waiting a month to he's been waiting a month while like purchasing pineapple cans of pineapples that have like the expiration date May 1st on it because it reminds him of her.
Mm,
She loves pineapples, and May 1st is also his birthday.
mm.
So it's very important to him. Like consistently throughout like the first half of the story, you'll see him eating like cans of expired pineapples on that date, like May 1st, and even it's kind of gross. It's kind of gross, but like it has symbolism elements into it. Like it really does if you look into it from a romantic perspective.
Now, do you mean it's
There,
gross because the pineapples are expiring?
it's because like I like to think of it as like they expire on the 1st of May, and May is the name of his ex.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, and that's his birthday.
Hmm. Synchronicity.
So three things that you can tie into all of that. But yeah, and then also has like a another side in the first half of in the first story where there's like this woman who's a criminal, and she's a really mysterious woman. She has a blonde wig, like red cherry lips and sunglasses, and she's like involved in smuggling and the drug the underworld of drugs and stuff like that.
Hmm. Hardcore.
And yeah, they eventually like come cross paths like in a bar. That's when they first cross paths, but it's like a
He
very
sees
brief.
her.
Yeah, it's a very brief moment where he tries to like talk to her, and he even asked her if she likes pineapples, but she doesn't seem interested at all into him.
Right.
It's kind of funny. It's really funny. Um,
She's so cynical and uninterested.
yeah, she's very cynical, and she's even drowsy. Like you can tell that she's very tired.
Yeah.
And he brings up the question multiple times, like, "How do you feel about pineapples?" It's kind of funny. But I think the sweet thing is he takes her back to his place, and he cleans like some of her belongings. Like I'm pretty sure he cleans her shoes,
Hmm.
yeah,
Hmm.
her slippers, and then she's just resting there. It's a really nice first. It's a really nice first half.
We started with her with those incredible
Yeah,
camera work where it's like looks handheld and there's all these kind of smudging of the images, and it's got that piece of music. I forgot what it's called, but it's one that's used in the beginning and the end. So she's been on this drug journey for like the whole through her subplot.
Hmm.
What's ironic though, so she's tired from doing all this criminal activity, and he's like all happy and excited to talk to her, and has energy, and she doesn't, and he's a cop, and they have no clue about that about each other.
Right. They have no, yeah, he has no clue that she's involved in smuggling and drugs and that she's even a criminal. She
Mhm.
has no idea that he's a cop. She just like almost barely views him as an average guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, after all of that, the first story at least, uh, almost ends abruptly when two characters bounce into each other. That's when we basically start the next story.
And there's a little transference between the stories
Hmm.
because he bumps into Faye at the
Yeah,
store, but you've also seen Tony Lee Young in a shot
right.
as like a harbinger set up.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's this other cop, 663. He's also going through a breakup. And there's this woman named Faye who works at this. I want to say it's like a diner, a restaurant.
There's a connection because the store he goes to where he's been getting the pineapple is adjacent to where Faye works. And she has just
Hmm.
started working there. And the area is called Chungking Mansions. And then
Okay,
Chungking Express is like a kind of a play on the kind of food they're doing. Doing like express Chinese food, like I said, like you would get in a mall in America, but they're doing it in Hong Kong.
nice. That does actually make more sense now that I think about it. But yeah, Faye, when Faye sees 663, she secretly starts to fall for him. She has this obsession with listening to the song California Dreamin' literally on repeat. Almost
Mamas and
every time
papas.
he's in the building, she'll make him like black coffee. And then there's this flight attendant that walks in and gives her like a letter that has keys in it. Turns out it's the keys to the officer's apartment. And she's been using these keys to get in his apartment. And when he finds out, that's when he makes the connection that she really likes him.
What does she do in his apartment? Remind me. Does she clean it?
She,
I
yeah,
don't.
she cleans it. Yeah, she does
Pretty
clean it,
sweet scene.
and it is sweet, especially when she's kind of just like hiding around and he's just walking in.
It's a
Yeah,
cat and mouse between these two.
it is like a really big cat and mouse thing. And let's see. They have this when they cross paths again eventually, and they have this conversation about Faye leaving Hong Kong to the U.S. for California. So that's another thing that I really picked up on. Because when I first saw this movie, I was kind of just like, why? Like, there has to be a reason she has an obsession with like the song California Dreaming because how
Mhm.
much it plays in the film. And it turns out she wants to go to California.
Mhm.
And um, yeah, she eventually does leave for California, and she leaves a boarding pass in what is supposedly supposed to be a letter for 663. It's kind of emotion. It is kind of emotional, honestly, because I'm pretty sure he finds it in the rain, and it's all like wrinkled up.
Mhm. Yeah, 663,
Um,
unlike the 223, doesn't actually have a given name that we find out.
yeah,
And we never learn Faye's family name either. Um,
true.
Faye is played by Faye Wong, who was a Hong Kong pop singer at the time. And she kind of
Hmm.
segued into acting. And I think she's wonderful in this. This is kind of her breakout role. She's also really good in Wong's 2046. Really good in that one, where she's also romantically paired to Tony Leung. Um, if we didn't mention, yeah, 663 is played by Tony Leung, who is one of the most decorated and well regarded and well respected actors on the planet Earth. And
Yeah.
I'm not exaggerating. I'm just looking at how many damn awards he's won or been nominated for, and I think he's in the top five greatest living actors on earth. And
Okay.
that's just my opinion. He might be number five, he might be higher. But and of course, no one in America, unless you watched movies like Hard Boiled by John Woo, he was in that. You know, people would see snatches of him, but he
Hmm.
never was in a Hollywood movie until Shang-Chi, Legend of the Ten Rings, in which he
Right.
plays the Mandarin, Shang-Chi's biological father. Uh,
Hmm.
that's his first and only turn here. He was quite good. You know, if they'd made a Shang-Chi movie in like the late 80s, he would have been playing Shang-Chi because he was in a
Right.
bunch of martial arts movies too, even including Wong Kar-wai did one wuxia movie, Ashes of Time. Have you seen that?
I don't think I have.
It's like an epic, and it's the only one that's not on Blu-ray yet. I'm not sure why, but it's yeah, it's breathtaking. It's like
Which decade is it?
it is, I guess, the 2000s, the aughts. Yeah, I don't, late
I'll
90s,
look it up.
2000s. Yeah, because it's before. Well, it's before In the Mood for Love, and that's like either 1999 or 2000. So it's in that late 1990s. But it
Hmm.
didn't get the same push the other ones did because it was a totally different genre. And then he also recut it and re-released it as Ashes of Time Redux, which I have that on DVD, and I'm holding on to it because there's no Blu-ray immediate plans. It wasn't in the Criterion on Kar-wai set, which I have, and that's a shame. But
Yeah.
it's one of the most beautifully shot movies I've ever seen. But Lee Young is in it as a he's a swordsman. He goes blind, and then he has this kind of friendly slash adversarial relationship with another swordsman played by the late Leslie Cheung. Um, and you know, a movie that I think is was well regarded because it was so radical when it came out. Wong Kar-wai's Happy Together. So that came out in the late 90s. It's probably right after Ashes of Time and before In the Mood for Love. And I remember it did play in a theater near my house, and I was so broke I couldn't go see it.
Man.
I barely knew who he was. I'd seen Chungking Express. I'd rented it because of the
Yeah.
Tarantino connection. He had hyped it and he put it on his label on VHS. And but Happy Together is Leslie Cheung and Tony Young, and they're playing a gay male couple in Hong Kong. That alone was pretty radical for the late 90s, being in Hong Kong and being two out gay men. And it was shot in black and white, and it's a tragic story. It's a
Oh.
totally dysfunctional. Yeah, it could be in his future strange love stories, or half his movies could. But Leung won some awards for that, and Leslie Cheung, at some point in the early 2000s, he committed suicide. But yeah, Tony Young is an amazing actor, and yeah, this movie was my second movie I saw him in after Hard Boiled, um, and Hard Boiled was about 2 years before this, so he was already a big star. You know, Wong even built a trilogy around him, a character, uh, Chow Wan, a writer of science fiction and wuxia fiction, kind of a pulp writer. He appears in Days of Being Wild a little early in his career. He's in a cameo
Yeah.
in Wong's career. Leung's in a cameo, and then years later, in The Mood for Love, he gives him his whole story with a love story with Maggie Cheung, and that movie became like a worldwide hit and won a lot of awards. But then a few years later, he did 2046, which is the third in that cycle. They're all in that shared universe, and in that movie, it's all about him too, and it's kind of him after never being able to consummate his affair with the Maggie Cheung character. And he goes through a series of women. He's kind of gone from being a very sensitive guy to being kind of a playboy. And it's all spread across the canvas of 1960s Hong Kong. And
Hmm.
by the time we get to 2046, it's not in linear order. But you know, it captures that era, and he's for each part that it goes into out of order, he has an affair with a different woman, and they're all
Yeah.
played by iconic Hong Kong actresses. Like Gong Li plays one, Fei Wong plays the one he's probably the most emotionally attached to. She's also a writer. She starts helping him write his stories. And what are some other? Well, Zhang Ziyi is one he has as a hooker. He hooks up with, and she falls in love with him, and that's becomes a he's blowing her off. But it's really he treats all these women differently. Then he always thinks of Maggie Cheung from the other movie, and then there's also Karina Lau, which was a showgirl He plays a
Hmm.
showgirl who was in Days of Being Wild too, named Lulu. In real life, Karina Lau is Tony Leung's wife. So there's just four women, and I covered 2046 on this show as part of our alternative science fiction film series because it's also a science fiction film because it's called
Hmm.
2046 and it's set in the year 2046 in a place called 2046. Is it another dimension like Alphaville? Who knows? Wong Kar-wai creates this thing with CGI effects. It's very beautiful, and he acts out the scenes from it. And basically, you have a character played by Takashi Kaneshiro who is in love with an android played by Faye Wong, and it's really a metaphor because he can't tell if she really loves him, if she really has human emotion. Um, but that story runs concurrently with Chamowan's real story, and you see how a writer takes people he knows and fictionalizes them and takes his feelings because in the mood for love 2046 was the room he was staying in this building, and 2047 was the room that Maggie Chung was in. And so he is, doing the numerological thing. That's a big thing with Wong Kar Wai, as we see in Chungking Express too. And he's doing this whole thing where Chow Wan is purging all these feelings he had in the mood for love in this other film by having these affairs and by using these significant things and metaphors in his story where he fictionalizes how he feels, into those characters. So it is squarely a science fiction movie and it's squarely not a science fiction movie. So I was like two layers. That's another I recommend to everybody. It's one of, even though it's a sequel to a huge hit, it's really one of his most overlooked films. But it is in the Criterion set. So God bless Criterion. And I will say, for full disclosure, 2046 is my personal favorite movie of all time. And it speaks to me as as a writer of genre works, as a creator, as a person who puts his personal life and things he experiences into his work, and as just a romantic person who's kind of gone cynical a bit. And there's a lot of power with Wong Kar-wai and Tony Young because they're both cancers, moonchild, astrologically, and they're both very short men, small men. Now, I'm all of those things, and I feel like I have an affinity that what they've created together with that particular character and his romantic journey and his journey as a creator. So anybody who is a romantic and or a creative person, I think 2046 would be just an amazing experience for you. Um, so what are your thoughts on Chungking Express? Now, we haven't talked about the music because it's not just the California Dreaming. That's definitely the
Yeah.
recurring motif in the second half.
Hmm.
Um, but in the first half, it's Dennis Brown's Things in Life, reggae song. Dennis Brown
Yeah.
was a roots reggae, kind of melodic pop singer along the lines of Gregory Isaacs, both in the early 70s. Loved that period of music. And they play Things in Life quite a bit. The piece that they play at the beginning, I found it's called Baroque, and it was composed by Michael Galasso. It said it can be heard twice during the first part of the movie, during the opening, and then when Bridget Lynn's character takes the gun in the closer. Um, so that's kind of the beginning, ending, opening, and closing of her story because the movie starts with her. Um,
Yeah.
and she's kind of become an iconic. Her look in that has become very iconic in cinema.
I agree.
There's not a whole lot learned about her character,
Mm.
but cinematically with that music and the visuals and the crazy camera techniques and her weird performance, and she gets a voiceover too. I've noticed, because the two cops narrate their stories, but
Hmm.
she actually gets a voiceover for a little while too. Right before she meets him.
Yeah.
And she says, people ask me why I wear sunglasses at night and a raincoat when it doesn't rain because you never know when the sun will come out and you never know when it will rain. So that's
Hmm.
another one of those little aphorisms that Wong Kar-wai throws in there. These little philosophical things. You decide what it means.
Yeah, I think it's very symbolic too. You
Yeah.
never know when the sun will come out, and you never know when it'll rain.
And her character, is undeveloped, but that's part of the thing with the guy in love with her. And when he first sees her early in the movie, he just sees a glimpse of her. and
Hmm.
his narration says, "In 57 hours, I will be in love with this woman." So his character's obsessed with time, as you noted,
Hmm.
and dates and the passage of time. And I think that's incredible.
Yeah.
Leung's character is more, I feel, reactive to Faye. I think in the first story, uh, 223 drives the story, but I think in the second part of the story, maybe we in the audience are supposed to identify with 663, but I feel like Faye drives the story.
I agree.
She's the bridge between the stories. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Tell me your thoughts about this. Tell me your thoughts about anything about it, else about it. Themes, music, conclusions, your
Let's
feelings.
see. I love the specifically the score, like the opening during that chase sequence. I think it's very mystical
Yes.
and it fits the atmosphere especially perfectly, especially for a Hong Kong movie. Hong Kong like drama, romance, mostly comedy because there's definitely like comedy elements in there for sure. Um, and I think the themes are really pristine, and I think there's a lot of symbolic elements into it, even some that I have yet to discover, because I
Mm.
do want to keep researching this film, especially the cinematography and camera work techniques that
Chris
they've worked with here.
Christopher Doyle shot it, and he's an English guy who lived in Hong Kong. He might still live
Yeah.
in Hong Kong, but he shot almost all of, if not all of Wong Kar-wai's films. So even though he's not Asian, he's worked in that industry, and he's one of
Hmm.
the best. Each movie gets more beautiful than the one before it, but that kind of swooping camera thing with the blurred images and the color shot through, they use a lot of that in the early Wong Kar-wai movies. And so, his movies are subversive in the sense that he came off the wave of John Woo and Ringo Lam and all these heroic bloodshed action
Yeah.
directors. And basically, he began in that genre, but he subverted that genre. Like As Tears Go By is seemingly squarely a film of that nature, but it's also a just transcendent and yet sad, hopeless love story. And that I'd like to cover that sometime. It has probably my favorite romantic scenes in any movie right now, anyway. And when he did Fallen Angels, that's even more uh, a lot of crime elements and a lot of action, a lot of shooting. But he's still using that crazy kinetic, frenetic camera work. But I feel like Chungking Express is kind of like the end, like the beginning. Like it seems like it's going to be a crime because when I first watched it, I assumed based on the cast, and in fact Tarantino was promoting it, and someone likened it to John Woo. I was assuming the whole movie was going to be like a shoot 'em up action movie. So I knew
Yeah.
nothing about Wong Kar Wai. So I watched it, and it starts out kind of that way, and then it goes completely somewhere
Yeah.
else and back and forth. In the second story, even though it's got a cop, it has none of that.
Does an excellent job at subverting your expectations.
Exactly. And after that, he didn't really do any crime elements in his stories, and it's amazing, how he
Mhm.
transitioned from acting to pure drama. Um, and well, he did do one action after they did Ashes of Time, like I said, but that's a period piece, a wuxia film, so it's not gunplay, it's swordplay, and it's
Yeah.
also romantic though. So I've read several critics said that Wong Kar-wai is quote unquote the most romantic filmmaker in the world. And after seeing about a dozen of his movies, I think I've seen all of them, but there might be one I'm not missing. Uh, I think I agree with that summation pretty much. So I think you'll enjoy exploring him, Elijah, and I think anyone in the audience who hasn't will enjoy exploring him. He's my second favorite director after the sadly just passed David Lynch. Rest in peace,
That
David
is so
Lynch.
unfair, man.
We'll take a second because
Yeah.
by the time you see this, it'll have been a while. But the video I just posted in our time, episode 198 and 199, our Mandy special, uh, David Lynch died the day before I posted 198. So I did put at the very end of it, even though it was real unrelated to Mandy, I put
Hmm.
rest in peace, David Lynch, and his birth and death dates, and I put love you forever.
Yeah. Like that guy was definitely like a father figure for like I countless of like cinephiles, people
Mhm.
who like just love the world of film. He was basically like um if Alfred Hitchcock and Stanley Kubrick's work was on LSD, but like on a compliment, in a very big compliment. I mean that as a
Yeah.
huge compliment.
Well, he worked in a commercial framework like they did, but
Hmm.
and his roots are in surrealism. So it even goes like deeper, like to people like Jean Cocteau and Amaya Deren, experimental
Yeah,
films that weren't commercial film. Well, Cocteau's sort of crossed over, but still. Um, we've had threads that tie all this stuff together within this series. I covered Orpheus for this series by Jean Cocteau, uh, and also we have another series after this. It's not gonna be a long series. Guest hosted by Bill Mulligan, our co-founding featured panelist. Bill wanted to do something a little different within that framework of his topic. This we shot it 2 days after David Lynch, or no, it was the day after David Lynch passed, or 1 or 2 days. And I went ahead and covered Twin Peaks: The Return in depth, not as much depth as it requires because it'll be a multi-hour show. I tried to clip it as much as possible, and then we all contributed our thoughts about David Lynch. So as we're recording this, this is still fresh a week later, this death. So
yeah. Even as you mentioned, like Twin Peaks, like that's like what undoubtedly one of like the best shows ever made. And I think even without it, like um some of our best modern shows like Breaking Bad probably wouldn't exist without Twin Peaks.
yeah, you're absolutely right, and I touched on that a little when I talked about the return, but then when we opened up to everybody, Bill Mulligan went into a really long thing about that and noted a lot of shows that were influenced by it or were made possible by what it did because, it was the most radical network television show ever when it came out. And what's
Yeah,
interesting is all of these like shows like you're mentioning that are on cable that are long form storytelling because when I was growing up, shows were episodic and formulaic.
yeah,
Dramas, action, comedies. Characters didn't seem to even acknowledge what happened the week before. They weren't like soap operas or comic books. They had no continuity. So Twin Peaks kind of changed that for television. It could have started sneaking in, and over the years when cable opened up the restrictions that Lynch was always fighting against with standards and practices, uh, there became a flood of these shows, and there still are. Showtime, HBO, Cinemax, all over the place. You've seen these kind of shows, Amazon.Prime, and uh, they have that fingerprint of David Lynch on them. But the ironic thing is, like I said, when the first series came out, it was the most radical TV series up to that time in American television.
hmm
Uh, So in that intervening years, 25 years, which is built into the plot of the show, in the intervening 25 years, all these other shows came along and they broke a lot of ground, more ground, and took things way far. When it came time to do the return. He entered into that uh, atmosphere. He was on Showtime. He was competing or alongside those shows that were influenced by him, a lot of them. And then he created the most radical TV series ever.
yeah,
He actually outdid all the series that influenced him because he
hmm
went further. He went further cinematically. It's not like he made it gorier or sexier. Those were elements
right.
too, but he took it to other levels.
Even especially for like if you go like all the way back to his debut film, like Eraserhead, he started off with like a massive bang.
Hmm.
He left an impression with Eraserhead. He really did.
Yeah, and Eraserhead became a big midnight movie and pretty quick, and that's how he got the gig on The Elephant Man. Is Mel Brooks liked Eraserhead?
Yeah.
Mel Brooks produced The Elephant Man. Not sure what order all these episodes are coming out. You'll probably see this after all that I mentioned. So I hope you enjoyed all that and know what we're talking about. Um, do you have any closing thoughts on this film or anything related? As we're
I
winding.
will say as for Chunking Express, I do genuinely think it is a masterpiece. I'd say it's personally, in my opinion, a 10 out of 10 movie, and it's undoubtedly one of my favorite foreign and romance films.
Very good.
Highly
Same here.
recommend it for anyone who has not seen it or and maybe familiar, semi-familiar with Wong Kar-wai, or hasn't seen a Wong Kar-wai film at all, and like I'd say definitely check this one out.
Yeah, it's a pretty good gateway drug to Wong Kar-wai. Tarantino
Mm-hmm.
called that correctly. Okay, so we're going to wrap up, and we've got many more incredible things coming. Wrapping up Strange Love Stories. We're going to
Yep.
be covering comfort food films, guest hosted by the incredible Bill Mulligan. And we've got some symposiums and interviews, so it's getting exciting. What do you think, Elijah?
Like, comment, subscribe, always for those coming up.
Right. Hit that bell, notification
Mm-hmm.
bell. You'll get a notification before everyone else, because YouTube is really bad about uh, showing our videos in the places they need to be shown,
Yeah,
because the algorithms
we need
favor.
the algorithm to grow.
Yeah, we need more subscribers to fight it. So please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already,
Yes.
and share it with anybody you know is into movies, or anything that we talk about. I guarantee you we'll touch on something that you're interested in. We might have a take that you are like, "Wow, that's exactly how I feel," or you might be like, "Who are these idiots?" But either way, leave a comment. Either way, and let us know what you think.
Yeah. We love forming discussions about film, whether we agree or disagree. It's who we are.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Take care. Go deep. Have a good night.
Yep.
And it's true that we cannot see that far behind. If we looked all the way in the past, we'd go blind. In the night, from the stars as they've all lived their lives, and the light that they gave as they burned and then died.